Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Statto, episode number 2 of this series. Who knows how long it's going to last for? But it's exactly like coronavirus, really. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with it. All we can hope is that cricket starts again as soon as possible. Who knows? Still, the 1st of July is the cut-off date for the ECB at the moment, and then we'll see what happens after that. But at the moment, it's still just delivering pizzas for me while I wait for cricket to start up again. Well, thank you very much indeed for your questions that you've sent in over the last week or so. I will do my best to answer them. Some of them have been a little bit tricky to answer, and there's one that needs a little bit more research, so you're going to have to bear with me on that one. But I will attempt to give you the best answer that I possibly can. The one that is very difficult to answer. It comes from Chelsea Jimbo 24 on Twitter, who asks who has dropped the least slip catches. Is there a record for how many are dropped? And is there a player who has never dropped a slip catch? Probably a myth, but would like to hear the story. Is Cookie the top catcher at slip? Unfortunately, it's very difficult to answer that because records back in the old days don't specify where a fielder was fielding. There are some tools these days that do have positions, but unfortunately, I don't have access to those at the moment. But you could say that Rahul Dravid, he holds the record for the most catches in Test cricket by an outfielder, obviously not including keepers, with 210. Mahela Jayawardene 205 behind him, and Jacques Kallis 200. If you sort of try and work out a little bit, it's difficult. I say it's difficult to work out who was fielding where. But 77 of the 205 that Mahela Jayawardene took came off Muttiah Muralitharan, so you can kind of guess that quite a lot of those would have been at first slip. And you could say the same thing for Dravid. And 55 of his catches, his 210 came off Anil Kumble, and 51 from Harbhajan Singh. So again, that would be pretty more likely to be in the slips. But unfortunately, I just can't quite pinpoint exactly where they were fielding because records just don't hold that information. Is there a player that has never dropped a slip catch? I could say me. Who's never dropped a slip catch. I used to field in the slips. I never dropped a catch because I never really went for them. I just stood there rather motionless. So I go for me. I'm sure the lads at my cricket club will completely agree with that. To all the lads at Calmore, yes, I can see you nodding. I can see you nodding now. The other question that's going to need a little bit more research is from Gary Muir, who I touched on in the last video. So, but it's not a difficult question to answer, but it just needs a little bit more research to work it out. The top 3 batsmen with the worst DRS records for failing to overturn out decisions. Shane Watson, the instance he springs to mind now. Let's give Shane a little bit of due here. He does take an awful lot of flack for his dismissals, and I've got a few stats on Shane. In his international career, he's had 47 reviews, 33 were unchanged, and 14 were changed. But that's all the reviews that involved him as the striking batsman. When he has actually asked for the review for Australia, and I've looked at LBWs because he did seem to love an LBW review, Shane, and 10 times the review stayed as it was, but 7 times it was actually overturned. So he wasn't bad. He wasn't as bad as some make out. 17 reviews that he called for in his international career, LBW as the batsman, and 7 of them he got overturned. So that's not too bad, actually. To be fair, we'll give him a little bit of due there. Amit Bansal was the first one to pop up this week with a real tester. And I did take a while to work this one out, and I have to thank my good friend and colleague Benedict for his help on this one. He had the list of all the number ones in the rankings, and I've done all the sort of the spade work working it out. The question was, which batsman has been number one in the Test ranking for the most days in a stint, and cumulatively also, and also the most times. Okay, now I will put a caveat in these. These have been worked out by me, so But the most the most stints, the most days in a stint is 5,780 by Don Bradman from 1933 to 1948. But there's a war in there. There's a 7 years of war where cricket wasn't played. No Test cricket was played. Let's hope this coronavirus doesn't doesn't affect the rankings like that did, obviously. And then just behind him is Jack Hobbs, 4,053 days. But his stint came between 1912 and 1923, where the First World War was. So those numbers are slightly skewed by the fact that that there's big gaps where no cricket was being played. It's a bit like when Portsmouth football say that they've held the cup for 7 years from 1939 to 1946, when of course it wasn't played, so it doesn't technically count, says the Southampton man. Not that's got anything to do with it, but those are the longest stints: 5,780 days for Bradman and 4,053 for Jack Hobbs. Gary Sober's 1,932, Arthur Shrewsbury 1,463, Jack Hobbs again 1,330 come up behind them, and then Bannerman, the first ever test centurion, 1,271. So, but again, those sort of numbers, not an awful lot where Test cricket was played back in the 1880s. So the numbers didn't change too much. I say probably the longest reign of a modern cricketer, Viv Richards, 1227, so pretty much 4 years, if you like. The longest cumulative, again, Bradman, 6,320, then Hobbs, 5,845. Sobers 3,698 is a big number. Hill, Clem Hill, 2,715, Richards 2,631, even W.G. Grace 1,524 as a stint. So they're the main numbers, if you like, and also the most amount of times. Now this is where the more modern cricketer and more Test matches are played, so they're moving up and down the list quite a bit. Brian Lara had 14 stints at number one. Viv Richards, Kumar Sangakkara and Sachin Tendulkar 11. Alan Border and Steve Smith have had 10. But again, because of the fluid nature of Test cricket and players sort of just very, very close at the top of the list, that's why that is so high. So I hope that's answered your question, Amit. It was a difficult one to work out, and it took me a while, but I hope that's given you some answers there. I've got two here from good friends of mine, actually, who have set me to task, if you like, with a couple of questions just to keep me going. And the first one has come from the United Kingdom Armed Forces Association of Cricket Officials, who I think is probably be Christian Nicholson, the chairman of. Captain Nicholson, good afternoon to you, sir. Good friend of mine and a very good chairman of our association of cricket officials, which I'm part of the scoring fraternity. And if any scorers out there want to come and join us, then be more than welcome to see you once we get back on the park, of course. Who knows when that's going to be. His question actually asks, can you tell me how many servicemen and women have represented England? And there's a few. There was a few of these. I'll start with the women, and there's really only one. That's Myrtle McLagan, the very, very well-known English lady who was part of the army, set up back in the 30s and 40s. She was almost the the doyenne, if you like, of women's cricket back in the day, and she certainly flew the flag for the army, which was absolutely fantastic. On the men's side, a lot of it was national service. Of course, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, shortly after the Second War, um, players were, or people were, citizens were required to do at least 2 years of national service. So what I've actually done, I looked at the list of players who have played for combined services, and I've got to thank my dad for this one, as he keeps all the records for the services. 57 years of service to the army and the combined services, or United Kingdom Armed Forces as they're now called. Obviously separated by 32 years with Hampshire, which ended in 2006, and he went straight back to the army again, and took up their cricket statistics post. So Dad's retired now. He retired at the end of last season after 57 years of service. So but he's still doing all the stats. So it runs in the family, this stats lark. The list of players who have played for England, who've also played for combined services or UCAF. They're all combined services back in those days. So you had Keith Andrew, who was in the army, played 2 tests and 5 matches for CS. Donald Carr in the army. Tom Cartwright from the army as well. Brian Close was army. John Dews was the navy. John Edrich was just in the national service. I'm not sure which service he was with. Martin Horton, again, just in the national service. Ray Illingworth was RAF up in Lincolnshire. Alan Jones. Now, of course, Alan Jones did play a test match for England, but of course it was wiped off. He played 2 matches for combined services. He was in the army, but he did play 1 test match, but of course he no longer has his cap, because that match against the rest of the world was expunged from the record, which is a great shame for him. But I've put him on the list with a star. Don Kenyon was RAF, as was Barry Knight, was also RAF, and Tony Lewis as well. Tony Lewis of Glamorgan and the RAF and Combined Services. Tony Locke, the famous bowler who took the other wicket in 1956 at Old Trafford. Brian Luckhurst was Army. Peter May was in the Navy. 2 more national service men, again, not sure which service they were in. John Mortimer and Alan Moss. John Murray was in the RAF. Alan Oakman was in the Army. Doug Paget was national service. Peter Parfitt was in the RAF. Jim Parks was in the RAF as well. Reg Perks and Dick Pollard was in the Army. Peter Richardson, Phil Sharp, Roni Staniforth was in the Army. Mickey Stewart was in national service. Raman Sabaro was in the RAF. Roy Sweatman, Fred Titmus, Bill Vose, the famous Bill Vose, of course, from the 1932-33 Ashes series. And last but not least, and I've left him last because it is slightly amusing, 67 test matches and 2 matches for combined services. Was in the RAF, up in Lincolnshire. Averaged 76 with the ball in 2 matches for combined service. Fred Truman. So he didn't enjoy himself too much playing for combined service, averaging 76, but obviously one of the great bowlers of England past. So that is the full list of players. Again, unfortunately, I don't have all the services that they all played in. Maybe someone out there who's watching this might be able to fill me in on a couple of those, because my dad wants that list as well, because he wants it for his records too. And the final question today is from Jeff Rees, one of Hampshire's former rugby presidents, who I first saw refereeing a match up at Sale in 1983 between Sale and Bath in the old John Player Cup. I've known Jeff and his lovely wife Faith for many years. Faith never used to stand next to me when I was watching rugby, because I used to shout too loudly when I was cheering and shouting for Hampshire or whoever I was watching. So Jeff has asked me a question. He said, asked about dual cricket and rugby internationals post-war. Now, pre-war there was quite a few. There was many pre-war. They used to be able to play rugby and play cricket. There's been players who have gone on to play um, uh, play rugby sort of socially, if you like. Robin Smith was a very, very good rugby player. I wrote an article about him for the Daily Echo when he played a handful of games for Romsey Rugby Club when he was just getting back from fitness. Probably not the best thing to do when you're getting back from fitness, playing a game of rugby. I think he was rather targeted when he played his matches. But um, excuse me. But the list is fairly short. There's only 7 players on it. The only one from England is MJK Smith, who played 50 tests for England cricket and 1 rugby international against Wales in 1956. He is the last English dual international rugby and cricket. Brian McKechnie, who played 14 ODIs for New Zealand and 10 tests for New Zealand 1977 to 1981. Tony Harris of South Africa played 5 matches for South Africa rugby pre-war, 37-38, and then played 3 tests for South Africa cricket, 47 to 49. Martin Donnelly is an interesting one. Played 7 tests for New Zealand at cricket. Played 1 test for England against Ireland in Dublin in 1947. Kim Elgie played 3 tests for South Africa, 61-62, and 8 matches for Scotland, 54-55, while he was at St Andrews University back in the 50s. 2 other ones, Clive van Rynvold, 19 tests for South Africa, 51-58, and 4 matches for England, 49, while he was at Oxford University. He is actually ranked as one of South Africa's greatest all-rounders, sporting all-rounders. He was seemingly very good at most sports, but obviously cricket and rugby, he made international level. The most recent one is Jeff Wilson of New Zealand, who played 6 ODIs back in 1993, and then thought, right, okay, I'm going, obviously maybe better at rugby, and he played 60 tests for the All Blacks from 93 to August 2001, and then came back in 2005 and played 1 T20 international for the New Zealanders. So that is the list. There's not many. Rugby and cricket kind of overlap a little bit now. So much like cricket and football, used to be lots and lots of dual cricket and football international. Des Compton being one such example. But rugby certainly doesn't really lend itself these days to being. Well, obviously rugby is very professional now anyway. So that's rugby union, obviously. They're the rugby union dual internationals. So that's my lot for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Like I said, I've got a little bit more work to do on those reviews. I will look up those as best I can and come back to you on that one. But for now, it's time for me to sign off. I'm working again this evening, back to delivering pizzas around the streets of Southampton. So until next time, I wish you well. I hope you're well and you are safe, and I hope to see you again soon. If you've got any more questions, please do send them through, and I will do my very best to use all my books here and my pink balls up on the wall, up in the cabinet there. So please do send any messages through that you have, and I will do my best to answer them. But until now, until next time, take care, and I hope you're very well. Take care now. Cheers.